I mean, PSG, champions of Europe, they're through again. Incredible performance, not only from PSG, but from Bayern Munich as well. The reason why I'm tilted off to this side of the screen a little bit is because I'm going to pop up some screenshots and we're going to go through them together. I'm just going to superimpose them on this side of the screen. But look, an incredible performance. You know, I thought this might have been the game, the toughest challenge for PSG. And if they were going to, fall victim to being knocked out in this competition, Bayern Munich probably posed the biggest challenge to them. And Vincent Kompany's Bayern Munich were really impressive. We'll get into all of that in today's video. If you're new to the channel, my name's Umir. I'm a professional football analyst. I've been off for a few days because I was down in London filming The Press with James Alcott, Elias Bouzidi, and legendary Julien Laurens, making my live TV debut, doing punditry for the Zone for the Club World Cup. It was incredible. If you've not seen it, it's a brilliant show, and those guys have done incredibly well for the last few weeks on that. I think the last episode was yesterday, but you can catch all of those videos on YouTube. I was, super appreciative to be a part of that, especially with, my two good friends, James Alcott and Elias Bouzidi, and my new good friend, Julien Laurens, who's incredible. Without much further ado, to be fair, Julien Laurens will be extremely happy with this result. Huge PSG fan if you're not familiar with him. But yeah, look, let's get into the video. We'll talk a little bit about what we saw from this PSG side. Right off the bat, actually, I want to talk about, just at the end, I want to talk a little bit about Dembele, actually, before I do begin. I know a lot of people talk about the Ballon d'Or race, and, it feels like whoever has the best performance, on the night is suddenly the favourite, whether that's Lamine Yamal, whether that's Dembele, whether that's another name. And I kind of fall trapped to that a little bit, but, if I'm trying to be objective and I take everything else out of what I've seen this season, I will still argue that I think Dembele has been my Ballon d'Or candidate. The end of the game, spoiler alert, PSG do win, but Dembele's contribution all round, particularly the way he pressed, the way he held up the ball, the smart decisions he made when PSG went down to 9 men was incredible. And obviously he tipped that off with a goal and a really beautiful tribute to Diego Jota, rest in peace, with his celebration as well. So look, a brilliant performance from Dembele. That's the first thing in my mind, which is why I want to first mention that. But let's get into the game itself. To begin with, actually, I think Bayern Munich had this really intense man-to-man pressure against PSG, and PSG are famed this season for their incredible combinations, their sort of 3 or 4 man rotations that have allowed them to build up and progress really quickly. On the overlap breakdown, the show that we do sort of real deep analysis on, we did some previews for the Champions League, and in our work about PSG, I noted that, they tend to build down one side with 3 or 4 players in very tight, small spaces against the pressure, enticing that man-to-man pressure before progressing very quickly, often trying to find the winger on the far side super directly. And then with your super quick wingers, you've got that chance to attack, 1v1 often in the back line. And that's where PSG have got their joy from, generally this season. They tried to do that again against Bayern Munich, but Bayern Munich's man-to-man pressure was incredible. I've got some stills, actually, I'm going to run through in this video. And you can see here, there's pressure applied to the goalkeeper when the ball does go back to him. He's curved his run, whoever that Bayern Munich player is. So he's cut off that side of the pitch, and PSG jump man-to-man across the pitch, so every option that PSG are trying to play through is occupied, and that forced a lot of turnovers. It forced PSG long often. I don't have the screenshots for it, actually, but PSG actually, directly from Donnarumma didn't even try to build out from the back in later parts of the first half and onwards, because they knew the press was really intense. They shuffled all of their players high up to the halfway line and beyond, and then went long like a really traditional old-fashioned goal kick. But if we go through this one, you can see this is actually a good example from PSG. They do fashion the chance out wide to their left back, it seems. And look, that pressure, that man-to-man pressure, particularly in that first half from Bayern Munich, is, dead tight. It's really difficult for PSG to get out. But what PSG did well in this instance, if I'm not wrong, is as I shuffle through, they get players involved and they use that 1v1 dribbling quality. You can see how deep this player has moved off. And look, there's that gap. And that was what PSG were trying to find throughout the first half, and it was really hard. In the second half, when PSG tied a little bit with the conditions, obviously, with the long season that they've been playing, with the less intense pressure of some of the substitutes that came on. We'll get into Musiala's injury a little bit later on in the video, which was incredibly sad. But yeah, when you had these opportunities from these very interesting dropping deep movements from PSG and these small space interconnections, you saw sort of the old-fashioned PSG. As you can see here, those rotations, and then that pass goes out, and then it finds, their winger in that front line. And that's generally how PSG tried to do things. That's a good example. But it was hard to find some good examples in that first half because Bayern Munich were really, genuinely, really impressive. So if we move it on a little bit, Bayern Munich again tried to attack in their own way. I think they dominated a lot of the ball, particularly in that first half, because they had a lot of those regains and high pressures. When PSG did try and press high, and they did try and press high themselves, it was about switching it to the underloaded side again for Bayern Munich, which is where they got a lot of their joy. The good thing about PSG, and we've seen this all season from PSG, is their ability to back press. It's really intense pressure from their central midfielders and in trying to get back. So often they'll try and press high, and PSG, as you can see, have applied a decent high press here, but when the ball does go back, it's the central midfielders that really bust along to get back, and it's so impressive from them to do so. It's not always the wing players. I don't often see all of the wing players and the striker getting back to help in that low block defensive shape, and we'll see some of those examples later on in the video. But when you had opportunities like this, Bayern were really good at switching the play to the opposite side, finding the winger, and then attacking on that underloaded side, which you saw here, and this puts you in a dangerous position. But if you can see, these central midfield players are the ones who are tracking back more readily than the Bayern Munich attackers are getting forward, which is really impressive, and it stopped a lot of the chances. So here again, they get in a good position, Bayern Munich, but look, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bodies across the back line. One thing I actually want to mention is PSG did really well to often add an extra player to the back line. So it's a back four, but they readily, and I noticed this today, drop one of the central midfielders into the back line, form a back five, because I think they try and protect that space in the back line more than wanting to protect the space in front of it. They often set up or end up in a 5-2 shape rather than a 4-3 shape right in this deep defense. I think you can see here 5. You can argue this is a 5-2. It's almost a 5-1. Because they're stopping any of those spaces in the last line for opposition attackers to peel off of and find space in behind. And it's a really nice thing that they do. Vitinha, for example, really good. João Neves really good at that as well. And then, yeah, we're fast forwarding on. This is another example. I just want to highlight directly Olise, who was really bright to begin with, fizzled out a little bit later on in the game, but the ball's gone to him in this situation through, again, building up on one side, switching it quickly to the other side, and this is obviously the right flank. I really like Olise. He's one of my favourite players in world football. I think a lot of teams missed a number in not signing him when he was at Crystal Palace, because he scaled up as one of the best wingers in the world, and I think at that time he probably looked like one of the best wingers in the world if you were looking at his actual skill set. But obviously sometimes the team name and the lack of, proven quality in European competitions, for example, puts teams off. I don't know why. He was brilliant at that time, and here was a brilliant example as well. You see, I love how he kind of fixes opposition defenders up in the sense that he drives at them almost directly towards their hips. They don't know which way he's going, and he could go outside or he can go inside, and his languid style, almost like a Mahrez kind of style, once he's frozen the defender, then he goes and he decides. And again here, look, the way that his body is framed, it's hard to know which way he's going to go. And once the defender's frozen, he goes on the outside, takes this brilliant shot, and Donnarumma did make the save. And that's almost been one of the main narratives throughout this incredible campaign for PSG this season. Donnarumma has been excellent, and we all talk about ball-playing goalkeepers, but the true quality of a shot-stopping keeper, I mean, wow, like he's really carried them through some difficult moments. And again, this game wasn't any different. You look at this example, I think this is just another example of the man-to-man pressure, so we'll skip through it. Actually, this is a better example because this was more of what we saw from Bayern Munich in general, that man-to-man pressure across the pitch. Once it goes into these wide areas, they've cut off the pitch entirely. In fact, they've got an overload. If you look at that left-sided player here and include him, you've got 6 Bayern Munich players against 5 PSG players, 6 if you include the goalkeeper. This outball's really hard to play because of the amount of pressure that you've got on the ball player, and then they win that ball back because they're trying to find that pass down the line. It's better to go down the line here, actually. Although it's a mistake they lose the ball, it's better to go down the line here because when you lose it, you're away from goal rather than losing it in central areas where teams can attack you more directly. And Bayern Munich get a good chance here. Is that the same chance? No, that's a different chance. But look, they get a good chance here, and obviously it doesn't come to anything. But look, you can see that's kind of the setup and the story of the game. A really strong back four moving into a back five from PSG. A really intense man-to-man pressure from Bayern Munich. When the ball did go long, it was hard for PSG to make it stick, but I did think Barcola was quite good in his outlet play and his hold-up play. So I do want to give him a mention for that. On the other hand, I thought Upamecano was brilliant at sweeping up and mopping up anything that did try to go long from PSG, particularly against Kvaratskhelia. Those times where Kvaratskhelia tried to do him for pace, a big mismatch. And Upamecano was incredible in using his strength, using his intelligence, and not only his defending quality today, his passing quality was really on show. I know a lot of times he gets a bit of a bad reputation because in some of the biggest games that people do tune into when Bayern Munich do play, the Champions League, for example, he's got sort of a moment where he does something bad. But generally across the course of a season, for many years, he's been really high quality. And yeah, I feel bad because almost knowing that he's got so much quality, the discrepancy between how people and fans perceive him versus actual quality, it's not nice to see, basically. And I think sometimes in Champions League nights, he gets done a little bit dirty by just being, told to stand on the halfway line against the likes of Mbappe and other electric counter-attacking strikers, Erling Haaland, etc. But he's certainly, in my opinion, one of the best centre-backs in the world. I don't know if that's a hot take, but he showed that quality, even if they did lose here tonight. This is another example, actually. I want to talk quickly about how teams can get at PSG. There's not many ways, but PSG, like we mentioned before, like to defend with their central midfielders. They don't always get their wingers back. They've got 4 in the back line, 3 here. I think this might be one of the wingers who's tracked back, which is obviously good. But when they do defend with these central midfielders, the central midfielders stay quite central, which sounds funny. But there's spaces in these half spaces for teams to attack. Obviously, with one of your central midfielders, sometimes they drop into the back line again, and there's even more reason if you can pen PSG in to try and look for these kind of half space areas. In this example is Pavlovic, who picks up the ball here. It's a great run, diagonal from Musiala, and it's just out of his reach. And obviously, they don't end up scoring from this situation. But yeah, look, I think that's why PSG try and get an extra body in that back line to prevent sort of these spaces opening up. They've only got 4 in the back line here, but if you can try and get these bodies in these half spaces, particularly when one of their midfielders drop into the back line, that's always going to be one of the best opportunities that you can utilize to try and score against this really strong PSG side who can defend deep or who can press high and win the ball high. And I don't know when it is. I think it was at the end of the first half, actually. We've moved into the second half here. But at the end of the first half, there's a really unfortunate injury from Musiala. Player who's just come back. I think it was his first game back from injury, and he's been out with really long injuries throughout his career now. I think last season was riddled by mainly injuries again for him, and he's one of the best talents that we've got in England. I know he plays for Germany, but he's come out of the English system, and I've been familiar with him in general and his quality for many years. He was touted as one of the best young English players, and then obviously he's played for Germany and he's showcased that quality. His dribbling quality is, I would say, second to none. There's a few in and around him, but he's very good. I think he's elite, one of the best dribblers in the world. Sometimes it takes him down certain corridors, but he has this ingenuity to kind of get out of those spaces. And I thought he was bright in this first half as well. I don't want to blame Donnarumma for this because I think Donnarumma doesn't have any intent. He gets the ball. It's a forceful impact. But yeah, it's a tough one. I know people are saying, look, we've got so many games. This bloated, fixture list is the reason why we're getting injuries like this. I think that's a little bit harsh to say. One, because I think the tournament's been quite good. And secondly, Musiala's not played too many minutes in general, especially last year. This is his first game back. And this is one of those freak contact injuries that could happen on any given day, to be honest. So it's unfortunate that that's really happened for him. He's, one of my favourite players to watch, incredibly technical and really exciting to watch, and you don't want to see this for any player, especially if it has implications for his future, quality and game, because it's a decision that happens in a split second. So we'll just have to see. I don't know, what the prognosis is, what the injury is in general. It's just a really sad one, and I just wanted to mention that before I get into the second half because it's such a big thing that happened in the game. As we move on, this is a brilliant example of what I'm talking about previously with PSG sort of 1, 2, 3 back 4. But as you can see, PSG are very central. And then obviously one of these players is moving into the back line again. So these wide central midfield positions or these half space areas are where the space opens up. And Olise comes inside. He takes a shot and it's, a fairly tame shot. It gets saved. But as we'll see when PSG score, it's this sort of quick shift and shoot movement from Doue that makes advantage of those exact same spaces, but on the other side against Bayern Munich. So that's one to look out for. I think Olise, as brilliant as he is, those are the spaces that he could have utilised a little bit more against this PSG side, but they defended really well in general. And then what have I clipped up here? Okay, this is brilliant. I don't know who this is. Is this João Neves? Is this... It might be João Neves. I'm not 100% sure. I'm a bit away from my computer when I'm cycling through these. But what I wanted to highlight is against man-to-man pressure. The best thing that you can do is have 1v1 quality. Players who can kind of get rid of their marker through pure dribbling quality. And this was brilliant because he dropped deeper. It was hard for his man to follow him, but he did. And then he carried it, beat one or two men, played it out wide to Nunes, and then Nunes again with that Nuno Mendes, I've combined his names there, with that one-to-one quality, again beats his man, and he appears to be in free space. It's brilliant because Harry Kane tracks all the way back and he makes that challenge, one of my favourite moments of the game. But it's that 1v1 quality, and PSG have it all over the park, but they couldn't showcase it in the first half. I think in the second half, the press wasn't as intense, so you had the chance, those spaces opened up a little bit to then showcase your one-to-one quality. And yeah, Nuno Mendes is brilliant for it, but Harry Kane got back and defended really well. This is a huge chance. Look, a big muck-up from Neuer, who, look, as brilliant as he was in this game, made some huge saves, tried to get involved, almost play as that third centre-back in build-up, trying to entice PSG onto him a little bit. He tried to play a pass through the lines as he's done all throughout his career, and in doing so, there was good pressure, but also, it wasn't, to be honest, it wasn't, intense pressure. They circle around him once the ball gets lost, but it's more, smart interceptions between Kvara and Dembele. And look, Dembele kind of takes this shot, it hits the post, or it just goes wide. I think it just goes wide, actually. And you think, Dembele, how's he missed from that close? Neuer actually puts this hand out as Dembele takes the shot, and he's a bit off balance, so you can forgive him for that. But I thought, look, when you miss a chance like that, where's the game going to go? Is he going to live to regret that? There's a moment here, I've actually not clipped it. Pacho gets a red card. He goes high on one of the Bayern Munich players, stood into the shin. I don't think that there's any question as to that being a red card. I think he's been brilliant actually all game, and the implications for the next round will be interesting because him and Marquinhos have been an impeccable pair and genuinely really impressive. They kind of balance each other's strengths and weaknesses out. Pacho really aggressive and stepping forward, and Marquinhos can do that, but a little bit more of a sweeper centre-back in their partnership. But really a great duo, and it's going to be sad not to see him and PSG at full strength into that next game, whoever they do play, because I'm filming this before that next game. But, I don't think there's a question as to that being a red card. What's happened here? And this is the next goal. No, this is the first goal. Harry Kane, he loses it. I think maybe a little bit, of tired legs, but a really intelligent, slow down movement from that player on the flank. Again, I can't see who that is here. And then one thing I've mentioned many times before is when you're playing against a stubborn to break down defense, it's that sort of direct dribbling quality or passing quality that pushes teams back, and then the space opens up in front. It's often hard to get in behind teams, but to play in front of them is where the space opens up, and the ball comes here again in that position Elise was in. He cuts inside, that quick shift, and that shot catches Neuer off balance, who thinks he's going to go in the opposite post, and then bang, PSG are 1-0 up. This is what I meant by Upamecano was brilliant. He, again, picked up these spaces like we mentioned earlier. With PSG being so central, they've often not come out quickly enough, or these wider spaces are often not defended by the wingers. Upamecano plays this brilliant curved cross from this narrow area, which is a really hard pass to play. You'd expect it maybe from a little bit wider here. But Harry Kane headers it, he scores, it's offside, which is a shame. I thought Harry Kane generally, apart from the mistake, had a decent game in general. Look at this, the reaction to the second red card, I think, from Enrique. It's a bit of a harsh one. I think the elbow is a very soft elbow from Hernandez, but it's an elbow nonetheless. And when you do something like that, and when you have the hindsight of VAR, it's hard. I think you look at a screenshot like that, and he almost has to go. So PSG now at 9 men into injury time, and they do a brilliant job of seeing out the game. I would expect them to kind of sit in or waste time a little bit. They do regain the ball and then kind of look like they're wasting time, but PSG can't just waste time for the sake of it. They go on the attack. Dembele's ability to win the ball, I think, in this instance, but then hold it up, make the right decision, and then also contribute to the attack. You see a sort of 3v3 on transition here, and there's a brilliant run. They kind of end up recycling it, and you think the chance is gone, but when it's moved out to this situation, again, like I mentioned before, you're moving the defense deeper to exploit the space in front of them. It goes to Dembele, who now puts it away. I think earlier in that move, actually, Dembele hits the post or the crossbar and it bounces back and he gets to this situation. But then Dembele puts it away and it's an incredible finish to the game. 9-men PSG triumph. He runs to the corner. He does Diego Jota's celebration, and he kind of encapsulates in his cameo just the all-round quality of his game, the ability to press, the ability to almost play as a hold-up player, the ability to link players in, the ability to lead transitions, the ability to score against a slightly more set defence. Yeah, I mean, he's my pick for the Ballon d'Or. PSG probably favourites now for the Club World Cup. It'll be really interesting to see how this game or the next game does progress. I think Real Madrid versus Dortmund, either one will be a good challenge for PSG. But a brilliant game. Bayern Munich, again, look, I'm not saying they were bad by any stretch of the imagination. A really strong performance again, but just like in the Champions League, falling out through, a little bit of, a lack of X factor for better or worse, So thanks for watching this video. Let me know what you think of this, the screenshot element to this reaction and analysis. I'm kind of like mirroring and balancing kind of different formats and concepts from people I like. Obviously, James Alcott, legend of the game, but, more sit down annotations and breaking down the game entirely, which takes a little bit more time. Lee Esposito, my boy, more reaction based. And he can get his videos out straight away. There's a French YouTuber called Willian, I think. I don't know how to pronounce it, but he's really good, and he kind of does something like this. I don't speak French, so I don't know how much reaction and opinion he puts into his videos, but I'm sort of in between. That's kind of the format that I'm landing on a little bit. I don't know. Maybe I'll also do just pure reaction videos and no screenshots. I'll also get the tactics board out. I'm a bit of a mixture of everything, but I love talking about football. I love talking about tactics. I love giving you my insight in general. So hopefully you enjoy this video, and I'll try and do a Madrid Dortmund one. We'll see. Catch you in the next one.